the face behind Sewing Made Special. I wanted to share something I made for a friend. I know a lot of people have custom mouse ears made for Disney, and she asked me if I could do that for her, and I said absolutely, but she wanted some sun protection, and I'm like, okay, how about we put it on a sun hat? So I took 2 patterns that I really like and I combined them in this video, and I made a sun hat with the mouse ears on it. The first pattern for the sun hat is the Rose and Reel pattern designer, and the pattern is just called the Arbor sun hat. That's this one, so you'll see that in this video. And then the other one is by Hempfully Ever After, and that is for the mouse ears. I really like this pattern because the ears are sewn on and not hot glued, and apparently if they're hot glued they can pop off a lot according to one of my friends who makes her own. She travels with a hot glue gun, so this is going to prevent traveling with a hot glue gun to Disney. But yeah, so if you like what you see, if you could leave a like or a comment or subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate that. Thanks.
Starting with the ears here, we're going to start from this, so from this line to this line, and we're going to do that on both sets of ears. You want to make sure that you leave an opening. Next, we're going to take our pinking shears and we are going to cut around from line to line because these are circles, so we want to get that excess fabric out of our seam allowance, but do not cut where you left your opening. And next, we are going to turn them inside out, or right side out rather, and then we are going to put our foam piece inside, and we're going to do that for both ears. Next up, we are going to take our hat pieces, and this is going to be sewn on one side. We're going to do 2 pairs along one side. Just one line, super simple, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And you're going to do that again, because again, there are 4, so we're going to have 2 sets sewn like this. And then taking our pinking shears, just trim that excess off in the seam allowance on both of the pieces that you just sewed. Now back to the ears here. We are going to stuff them to our liking. This is going to be personal preference on how fluffy you want them, so just put in your stuffing to your heart's desire, and then afterwards we are going to put them on the hat. So here's our hat pieces. We've got 2 separate ones. We're going to sandwich the ears inside of them. So we're going to have these upside down raw edges together, pin them in place, and then pin the other side on top so it's completely sandwiched. And here is what it should look like so far. And now you're going to take your lining fabric, and again, you're going to sew 2 pieces of the hat together, and then the other 2 pieces, and then you're going to sew them together, but without the ears inside. So it will look a little bit different. Make sure you use your pinking shears on both sets before you sew them together, and that will help keep the bulk out of the hat. And then I'm going to use my pinking shears again here after it's all completely sewn together. I didn't do that with the ear part just because the ears were inside. And then now I am just making the ties. This method is optional. You don't have to use them at all. But sewing ties are pretty self-explanatory. Now I'm going to attach my ties to my lining fabric. So I did use my main fabric for these, but I'm attaching them to my lining fabric. And you're just going to make sure that they are on opposite sides, and make sure when you are putting them in place that your sewn line is facing in the same direction. You also want to make sure that you've got the raw edges facing each other and that the ties are essentially hanging upside down, and then you're going to baste them in place. Now we're moving on to the brim of the hat. You're just going to sew the raw edges together. If you have a printed fabric, then you're going to make sure that right sides are facing together when you do this. And then again for our main fabric. That seam we just created, that is going to be the back of the hat. So we want to find the middle front and the sides. And then you're going to match up the front and the back and the sides of the top piece and pin everything together all the way around. When you're doing this, you're basically going to have right sides facing each other. It's going to look upside down. It's going to look funky. But in the end, when you flip it, it'll be right. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my lining fabric. And you are going to have your ties hanging down freely. Make sure those don't get caught up in anything. And now that we've got these pinned, we're just gonna take them to the sewing machine and sew all the way around where you just pinned. And now we need to sandwich these together. So get this inside out, your main fabric, and then plop your lining fabric in there. Make sure right sides are together. Match up your seam on your brim, and then you're going to make sure your fronts line up and your sides line up, and you're going to pin all the way around. And when you're pinning all the way around, you are going to want to leave a 2 to 3 inch hole in the back of the seam. And then you're going to sew from pin all the way around to the other pin and make sure you leave that spot open. And then we're going to grab our pinking shears again and cut around everywhere you sewed except for that opening. Leave that opening alone. And we are just going to flip it right side out. Be gentle when you are pulling. Do not rip your ears off. Then you're just going to want to iron and make sure you've got everything pressed nicely. And you're going to sew all the way around, including that opening. We are sewing our opening shut. That is it for the sun hat. I feel like it's a very simple modification to the Arbor sun hat, and I feel like an adventurous beginner could do this. I mean, I feel like the hardest part of making the sun hat would be probably just matching up the brim to the actual hat, like making sure you pin everything correctly so you don't get it all out of whack. But it's pretty simple, and I really like making the Arbor sun hat with or without the ear modification, and I do find that their size chart is accurate. I have not had a single complaint on sun hats not being the right size. As long as you're measuring their head, you're good. So Arbor sun hat, 2 thumbs up, and I really like the ear pattern. Stick around for part 3 if you want to see
the headband ears be made. And thank you for watching.